ready?
I just turned on this tape and I'll,
All right. It's now 6:33 p.m. and I'm going to call the Tuesday, October 28, 2014 meeting of the Tilton Planning Board to order. And first on our agenda is the continuation of PB Class Case 1414. It's a site plan review proposal for the Tilton Sports Center at 100 Autumn Drive. And I believe your request is to continue that?
or we can just, if you want to, you could go over there and say it, or I can say we received an email from the applicant requesting a continuation to the November 25th planning board meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that the one right before Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not going to ask you to move here, you just can't vote. I'll entertain a motion to continue that.
Make a motion to continue. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so done. Then next is a continuation of Planning Board Case 1415, it's a site plan review for a proposal to construct and operate a snow dump at 405 Laconia Road in the Resort Commercial District. And welcome back. And last time we continued this because we sent you to the Conservation Commission. And did everybody get a copy of the notes? Okay. All right. I will open it for discussion.
Anybody? How does that conservation issue?
Well, I have a letter that I would like to read and put into the minutes. It's from Mike Kimball, who is at DOT. This is in a response to something that Dari sent him. I will read what Dari sent. It says, "Hi, Michael. The Tilton Planning Board has received a proposal from a landscape contractor to operate a snow dump across Laconia Road from the Lockmere Golf Course. The parcel is R21/12-A. We have copies of 2 driveway permits for that property. One is for logging and the other is for temporary events. I think flea markets were planned there at one time. Could you tell me whether any other permits exist for that location? Would you agree that neither of the permits I mentioned above allow for use of the property as a snow dump throughout the winter? Thanks." And that's from Dari. And the reply that Michael gave was, "Hello, Dari. The 2 permits that you mentioned are the only permits that we will have on file for this location. Permit 451-375 was issued in 1995 to Gerald R. Shaley for temporary logging. And permit 45137-5A was issued last year to Ann M. Shaley for the temporary special events. Both permits have expired. A condition in number 45137-5A required that the permit must be renewed annually before May 1st. As of today, and this was dated Tuesday, October 28th, it's today, this permit has not been renewed. In the same permit, a driveway specification requires that a paved apron be constructed from the edge of the highway pavement 25 feet onto the site. I don't believe that this apron was constructed, and it's not. So many of you don't have been out there. A new driveway application for the snow dump or any other future use must be submitted to this office by the current landowner for our review. We would have to review the site to ensure that the water runoff/snow melt would not end up in the US Route 3 draining system. If it is determined that the water flow sheets away from the highway and a paved apron was constructed, a temporary driveway permit for the snow dump may be issued. But I have to stress that this office would need to conduct a complete review of the current conditions and the proposed use before any permit would be issued. And I believe you received a copy of that.
Yep.
Would you like to address that at this point in time?
No, I'm just gonna want some clarification as far as the specifics on how far in he wants to go. You mentioned a 25-foot,
That's what this says, 25 feet.
would that be wide or in?
And
In.
Yeah.
And
I
the
just put
depth
one
of-
right next to your property
Okay.
that you're talking about. You can see what we did, I mean, right next to you. That's what they're looking for.
I know that you're in a bind to get moving on this. And I had Dari and I, this afternoon, Dari put together a few things, and I'd like to read what the suggestion might be in order for us to approve it with conditions, and these conditions would have to be met before that you did it. You would have to meet the requirements of DOT per this letter. And the approval would be good for 2 years. In order to continue operation beyond 2 years, you would have to return to the planning board for renewal.
Okay.
Okay? The snow dump should conform to New Hampshire DES recommendations as set forth in the 2007 DES Environmental Fact Sheet entitled Snow Disposal Guidelines.
Can we add to that?
Yes.
In chapter 485-C, New Hampshire RSA,
Okay.
that was kind of the birthplace. of
And
those
New
guidelines.
Hampshire RSA what?
RSA 485-C.
Okay. Number 3, Snow Pro certification shall be retained for all operators maintaining properties sending snow to the snow dump. And that's very important, I think. Number 4, only snow from properties maintained exclusively, underline, exclusively by Belknap Landscaping Company may be brought into the snow dump. All right? The property owner, this is number 5, the property owner must take necessary actions to either divert or discontinue snowmobile traffic through the site. And I know that was mentioned at our last meeting, and you said that you would see what you could do. I think Jerry, probably need to speak with Jerry to put up some kind of signs, either saying no trespassing or snow dump area, stay out, or whatever.
Yeah, probably
Okay.
reroute the,
I'll reroute it, so that's one of the conditions. 6, sufficient signage must be posted clearly indicating in language that can be understood by children that trespass is prohibited. Okay, 7, necessary driveway permission, which is this DOT letter, must be obtained from New Hampshire DOT prior to operation. Number 8, the site shall be open to inspection by the town, and an initial inspection shall be scheduled prior to operation to confirm that all of these conditions have been met. Now, does anybody have anything else they'd like to add to that?
If we vote to approve it.
If we vote to approve it.
I think there should be soil testing before the snow is put there, and then annually to see how the you know, what's being contaminated into the soils from the snow melt.
Well, is that necessary if, in fact, the Snow Pro, if we have a copy of the Snow Pro certification on site?
Well, that just means that they've gone through a process at DES where they're using, is it less salt?
we're
Like
using,
a
we're
different
using
form of
less salt, plus
fluoride.
we're using treated salt, which is
Right.
even less.
So and it's not just the salt, it's all the chemicals that are picked up in the snow from cars, you know, leaking oil, transmission fluid.
All right, who do you propose to do the soil testing?
Belknap Landscape could do it under the supervision of code enforcement or health officer. And they can be sent to the state labs, UNH test soil, I mean,
So, what, do we have we need a list of contaminants, right? You want to test for?
they would test the soils previously to dumping snow there, so we know what the conditions of the soils are. Then,
What's is there a name of the test, because you have a lot of different types,
well, we'd be looking for petroleum products,
right, so.
and you'd want to test the salinity.
And
Would you do,
what would we, that's just what I was going to say, what,
there's a lot of petroleum
Yeah.
products, because, I mean, is the levels,
the levels are different and whether,
yeah,
I mean,
Well,
it's,
if you're starting out, the first soil samples show there's no petroleum products in the soil. It probably isn't, because it hasn't been used by man in that way. It's been raw land. It was pasture land, and then allowed to grow up and then cleared. So you're probably gonna find nothing. So that would be your baseline.
and,
Then your next test, you compare
what-
it to your baseline, have they elevated? And the EPA sets like water quality standards, what's acceptable, what is not, and I'm sure they have soil samples. You know, I mean, soil analysis, what is acceptable, what is not. Just like the testing we did when we did the town garage, we had to do testing. I mean, we could have put in a monitoring well, but that's a little expensive.
well, I was gonna say, I think a monitoring well would be the solution, but I don't think we wanna impose any more expense, and you've already made it clear that you couldn't afford to do something at that expense. I think a monitoring well would be cheaper than the bladders we talked about,
Yes.
but I don't see that they're,
And the soil test would be
the soil
least
test would be a
expensive.
cheaper way. Would you have a problem doing the soil test once a year?
Providing that there's some kind of specifics to the soil test.
Well, that's what we're talking about. I have problems with at what levels do we accept or not accept. I mean, I'm not a soil scientist, so I wouldn't know. Would you, Dari, have any idea?
Some ideas, but I'm certainly not prepared to present them tonight. I agree that if the planning board were to require a soil testing regimen, that it either needs to be defined or there needs to be a process defined through which it's going to be defined.
And at what levels are we going to say halt? Are we going to say it's okay to go ahead?
Yeah, and then one other thing I'll throw out there is that these types of operations go on all over the place. They've been going on for generations, and it is actually rare that hopefully that'll change in the upcoming years, but that a contractor is ready, able, and willing to assign only certified operators to this type of work. So again, we're already in a better situation. So I guess I feel like the soil testing is another level of risk management put in place that may or may not be necessary.
I'm concerned because Pennachuck, who has provides the water to the Ashlet Drive area,
Mm-hmm.
they use artesian wells. They're not pulling water out of the lake like Lochner does. Their well is in the far western corner of their land. Now, granted, they have a well radius protection area, but water doesn't travel underground like you'd expect it to. It goes to the path of least resistance. So who's to say that this snow dump that's right up against this wetland area isn't going to contaminate those wells?
I'm not sure testing the soil would tell us that.
It would give you an idea of what is being absorbed into the earth. Like I said, the other choice is to have a monitoring well. That's going to really tell the tale, but I think at this time, I mean, in this country, snow dumps have not evolved into a environmentally sound or, well, we won't go there.
possible for
Condition.
that other property to have their water tested? It would tell you conclusively that it's coming from that area, but.
Well, the problem would be is when they test the water and they find that the salinity or there's MTBEs in it, it'd be too late. Well, it's my theory is if we test the soils around the site before,
Do you know how much the soil testing costs?
I know what it costs me to test the soils in my pastures every year
Mhm.
to determine what fertilizer I need at UNH, and that's not, I think it's like $30.
That's not the same as, at all as a petroleum test, though.
Do you have any,
I know
you
what
don't
I
have
test.
any other location?
We do soil test ourselves and send it to be tested, I believe in Concord, but that's basically for topsoil.
Same thing.
A soil test like this, I would imagine we would need to go to some depth to give an initial layer for a salt.
I mean, if he's following the DES guidelines, isn't that going to be redundant
One
practice?
No, I don't think so.
One practice that I'd like to point out here is utilizing the treated salt. We won't be doing as much pre-treating, so you're not going to have as much salt content in the snow. That'll be stockpiled on the sites, and then it'll be hauled off from there. It's after we're done plowing, that's when we treat. So I would say that it would be minimal salt, less than what we've used in previous years.
But it's not just the salt, it's all the chemicals that cars leave behind as well. You got a car that parks in, like Tanger parking lot all day and it's got a gas leak. That gets cleaned up with the snow. It's leaking antifreeze, it's leaking transmission fluid. That gets piled up with the snow. So you got 100 cars sitting in Tanger that are leaking something that gets piled up with the snow. And we're taking all of that snow through a season and putting it in one location.
Like we do with the VA for the town.
Yeah, so now it's become concentrated.
So, I mean, that's my concern, that we're holding you to a different standard than we're holding other people, and I don't agree with doing that. I think these conditions that I read, plus the fact that you and your drivers have to be certified, and we're checking on that, and we're having you report back to us on that, and the fact that you are conforming to DES recommendations set forth not only in their snow disposal guidelines, but in the New Hampshire RSA, because we've added that. To me, that's sufficient to ensure that the soil's not going to be contaminated. And the fact that the Conservation Commission didn't appear to have any major concerns. I'm open to listen to other board members, but that's my own personal feeling about it.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna penalize, then you have to go after all the other big parking lots in town too. What are they doing? And also I'd wanna know more about the soil testing. You can't just do one area, like you said, you have to dig. And then we don't know enough about soil testing in general. If DES came and said that they would like that, then that would be their concern, but.
One thing I would like to add to this is us doing spot checks, the town.
What are you
doing spot-
checking for?
Well, to see that they're not going outside of the area that they've said they would. Anybody else on the planning board have any comments or how you feel about it?
I mean, when I think of the testing, I think that it would have to be a standard test all the time, and one of the concerns I have is what's in that soil. That most of the dirt that's there, I think, was brought in from outside at one point. And just as if I was the owner, I'd want to be concerned what was in that soil, so that you're not held for that, if there's already contaminants in that soil now, that would be nice to know, so that, you know, if it's 20 parts of NDTE in that soil already, and then after, you know, a year of dumping snow on it, we're up to 21 or 22 parts, whatever that calculation is, I would be concerned about that. You know, it's just that what's in that soil now is what is a question that I have, so that if we do all of a sudden say he has to test it, the base, we need a base to find out what's in that now. And I think the only way to do that is probably some type of core test, where you're gonna have to take a sample of I don't know how many feet of soil just to find out what's in there. You know, and that's just me. If that was my land, I would want to know that, so that I wasn't held, being responsible for polluting the existing soil there. And my only other concern was, I think we already addressed it though, is just making sure that it's snow that you've handled based on your Snow Pro, Green Pro certification. I think I brought that up at the last meeting, was, just if it's your snow, you're not going to be taking snow from, Joe's Landscaping, because he's cleaning out a parking lot across the street from another parking lot that you're doing, and dumping, he's paying you, $50 a load to dump the snow in your snow dump, because it's not going to be treated the same. I think that with the snow that's going to be there, even though they do the green practice, you're still going to have slush and salt that's on the cars existing that's going to come in and be put into that snow, and then you have the residuals of the car leaking gasoline and other contaminants from the cars that are already existing, but you're going to get that driving down the road anywhere you go. But it's going to be more concentrated because you have 500 cars there on a winter day. Or maybe not, because they're not traveling, but that's my biggest concern there.
Are you plowing Tanger?
Yes,
That's where that's what you would use it for, the Tanger plowing?
the bulk of it.
Where's the Tanger snow going now? In a corner or something? I mean,
There is one of the lots there in the back that we've been filling in the past for a certain amount of time until that fills up. He came to me this year and asked that he may want that removed. We were hauling it over to Belmont. We have our own site that we haul to in Belmont, and then another location. We still have our other site, but that's a bit of a distance, and for the rounds of trucks to go back and forth. This site's a lot more friendly and a lot closer.
I believe this is the first request for a commercial snow dump site in Tilton, so this would be the first. There isn't anyone else to hold to the standards. This is the beginning.
Except the one that the town uses, right?
That's not a commercial site. That's
No, but that,
municipal.
it's still,
Okay.
The towns never held to the same
Although-
standard as their residents.
Although there
They
has
didn't agree
been,
either.
there has been hauling off of the site.
pardon, I'm sorry.
There has been hauling off of the site before we were on the site. So it has been done.
There was also
Unfortunately.
people that were cleaning up Tanger and dumping it over the corner of the wall in the back into the wetlands.
Right, and that's something we,
You haven't done that.
Right.
Belknap hasn't, because I've checked.
No,
We have
well, up in
no
Lockmere, where I saw them dumping it into the water there by, across from that marina. And they were just dumping it right in the water.
And you know the reason they don't dump it in the water? It's not because of the salt of the petroleum products, it's the litter.
Oh, I know.
And I'm sorry, for me, that's an oxymoron.
Yeah,
Makes no sense.
yeah.
Yeah, just because I just thought of this. If you were to say melt the snow on site using Tanger as an example, where would that water go? If they did direct melting on site, like at the airport, they direct melt,
that
The
would-
Winnipesaukee River,
well, that, it would probably dump into their pond
right?
they have on site.
Yeah. I didn't know, is that where all the stormwater goes, is into that?
Yes, and that goes into the Winnipesaukee River.
So it would be directly flowing into the Winnipesaukee River, where this site would at least possibly filter some of it between the,
And then it'll go into the Silver Lake, which goes into the Winnipesaukee
Right.
River.
And that,
so
and
it's
that's,
all the Winnipesaukee River, but.
You can't, there's no way to prevent chlorine runoff. It's gonna happen whether it's at this snow dump or any others.
It's gonna happen someday.
Yeah, it's gonna eventually
And it's gonna
happen, so.
happen when it's too
I
late.
guess what we need to concentrate on instead of getting off on all of these others is does everybody agree with all of these so far? And you don't agree with all of these so far, what don't you agree with, please?
I want testing in there.
No, that's not what I asked.
No, I don't
I said,
think
do
it's
you
enough.
agree with these?
No, it's okay, we can go.
Catherine,
We don't
that's not what I'm.
have to, we don't have to all agree.
No, I'm
We
just.
need to decide whether
you're
we're
not
gonna
listening.
vote for it or
Just
against
out of
it.
order, just a minute. I'm asking you if these 8 points
And I said,
you
no.
agree with, and then we can talk about, do we wanna add a 9th? That's what I was trying to
And I
get.
said, no. I
You're
don't
saying
think they're
no.
stringent enough.
You don't agree with any of these.
I don't think they're stringent enough.
How does the rest of the board feel?
Should I make photocopies?
Yeah, why don't you
All right.
let's
I
not.
do that, Barry.
This one has like a note on it, so.
This one doesn't. Do you want the note?
It's you.
Oh, I see what you're doing. I'll hear the notes.
Yeah.
They came with, and we don't have enough to know about the soil testing. That can be contaminated by the roadway as well, and that's another concern of mine. Where do we go with it? If there is if we go over a little, and then it's really goes back to the DES. So, and then, how many different sites are there? To be fair to the phosphorus to get a baseline.
Your list is good. There was a thing about a conservation, about fragment.
Well, I think
I didn't Google the fragment.
I agree with that.
I didn't.
I think it was a weed.
I might.
I think the list has followed the DES recommendation, though.
Yeah.
No, but the Conservation Commission has a specific request in here for treating a fragment. I guess it's just gonna find out what fragment.
Did you get one? It's like a.
That's good. Easy.
Yep.
That's good edition.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
common meat is a large perennial grass common wetlands, temperate and tropical regions.
What don't you think is stringent enough, Catherine, of these 8?
I would like clarification on number 3, that snow pro certification shall be maintained. That's every single truck driver has to have snow pro certification.
What that is, if I may, what that is, it's a training program that we go through UNH, put on by UNH, that trains our applicators on salt application on properties. From that, each applicator gets a certificate, and then from that, we go to New Hampshire DES, and we get a certification from New Hampshire DES. I hold a master certification, and those appliers that work under me hold each a certification.
Every single person has to have
Apply.
them on your,
And that's voluntary. We've been doing that for the past 3 years, I believe, 3 or 4 years, 3 years. As a matter of fact, last week we went to New Hampshire Salt Symposium down south, put on by the New Hampshire DES. It was very good.
Dara, do you have any suggestions if we put in soil testing, how we go about measuring that, what to look for, or?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought Well, I'm gonna go a little bit beyond your question, if I may.
Okay.
Is that my thought, my recommendation would be to not have that condition. And I think my reasoning is based on sort of what's been said about requiring these folks to go above and beyond what other folks is being required of other folks. I have a hunch that snow dumps do exist all in locations around Tilton, but they just, for whatever reason, have never come in for a site plan review. So here we have someone who's come forward, the company's done. I mean, I think the idea here with the Snow Pro certification is that these guys have been trained not to put down more salt than they need. They've been trained you don't put down salt until you've already plowed. That's really big here. So you don't go after a snowstorm and put salt right on top of that snow. You plow it, and now that snow is in a pile. That's what's being taken to the snow dump, and the salt is now being deposited on the icy, that little skim coat of snow and ice that's left over. So they're doing that. We know they're doing that. They're maintaining their certification depends on them continuing to do that. And then the other thing I think is the first condition, the 2-year window. If we see things aren't going right as a town, we've got a mechanism to deal with it there. So to go back to your specific question, I would say that if, after all, my sort of pushing for not having that motion, if the planning board decided to have that condition, that we would have to somehow, and we were going to go forward with an approval tonight, the board was going to go forward with approval tonight, that it would have to be left to be determined, so that a soil, and also soil is one thing, but chloride is what they call conservative. Chloride doesn't bond to the soil, it moves right through the soil. So it's going to go right into the water. So soil testing may show evidence of chloride moving through that soil, but the actual chloride won't be there. Evidence in that other ions have been stripped from the soil. That would indicate that salt's been moving through there. So soil testing worries me a little bit. On the other hand, monitoring wells is, as Catherine said, we don't know which way that water is moving. It could go uphill if that's the lower gradient is uphill. So in terms of the lower pressure gradient would be uphill. So anyway, I think it's a sensitive area, and I guess again, given the first condition, I'd like to see the board stay away from it. But again, I think if it has to be in there, then it just has to be worded that environmental testing appropriate environmental testing to be established by the town or health officer, however you want to say it, will be required. And just have to sort of work that one through as a after the fact.
How does the board feel about that? Again,
I think the conditions are good as they stand, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the application with these conditions set forth based on
conditions 1 through 8,
1 through 8.
with the addition of the chapter, whatever, I didn't,
485C.
45C. That's the RSA.
Oh, right, yes, the RSA.
Okay.
We haven't established what kind of berms are gonna be in place. We've had suggested berms. We haven't established what things in number 1 might not be going right. And we haven't established number 8 exactly what kind of inspections are gonna be done.
There's a motion on the floor, so let's get
Okay,
a
save
second,
that for
or not a
discussion.
second, and then we'll save that for discussion. Do I have a second to the motion? No second?
The
Then
motion is just for the 1 through 8.
Mhm.
It's to accept the application or approve it.
So there's no second, so the motion dies. All right, more discussion then.
Madam Chair, are you taking residents' questions or opinions?
Yeah, they're just a minute. Anything else from the board? All right, now I'll open it up to the public.
Madam Chair, I live up in that general neighborhood, and I know a little bit about snow dumps. I'm certainly not a soil scientist either, but I do know that sodium hypochlorite and sodium chloride are the biggest polluters of water in the state of New York. I understand that the state is the biggest offender here. And to the best of my knowledge, and I have some knowledge of this as well, there are no commercial snow dumps in the town of Tilton. Every single commercial property is required to have a snow dump on site. If there were a commercial snow dump in town, chances are I'd have heard about it somewhere along the way, in my time as a selectman. But that being said, I'm totally not in favor of locating a snow dump next to a wetland. Just seems counterintuitive somehow. And I understand that this is a hard thing. All that snow from Tangaroa melts and goes into the Winnipesaukee River. I'm not in favor of that either. And good luck with this, because but I wouldn't vote for a snow dump in a wetland.
Thank you. So the DES recommendation is that snow dumps be near flowing water. So
That makes good sense.
okay. Well, again, we have to understand chloride moves through the soil. Chloride will make its way into the groundwater, into surface water. So the breaking up of snow dumps. So okay, there's no commercial snow dump. Well, if every site has a snow dump on site, then that again is snow that is melting, and if there's chloride in it, it's moving into the groundwater, into an aquifer, perhaps into a surface water. The act of concentrating it, it has the potential negative effect of spikes that would come from it, but really the overall chloride balance is not necessarily impacted. So I guess that, yeah, those are my thoughts on
If my well gets polluted with chloride, I can't prove it comes from the snow dump, but I'm gonna be pissed off. And I'm gonna come back and say, hey, I'm pissed off.
I think.
Can we please not
I guess-
forget the petroleum products that the snow carries with
Well,
it?
that's the next thing, I mean, gee whiz. And I know that there's a water treatment plant downriver, and that the water is treated from that point south, and I'm all about that too, but that doesn't help the aquifer in that area where people draw water from the ground. There's no easy answer. Like I said before, there really is no easy answer to this.
I mean, the solution comes in reducing the amount of salt that's applied. There's more of the solution is in reducing the amount of salt that's applied than is where you put the pile. So I'll stop there and sort of limit it as a direct
I
response.
do have one more question. I was late, and I apologize for that. Maybe you've covered this already, but item number 4, snow from properties maintained exclusively by your company may be brought to the dump. Is that Tilton snow, or you can now bring dump snow from any property that you maintain?
As
Just
I told,
take her out.
as I told the board,
Okay.
it was from Tilton.
It should say,
I
number 4
guess
should
I
say.
apologize for running that over again.
All right, Catherine brought up a good point. Number 4 should say only Tilton snow from properties in Tilton.
We should
Located.
determine what type of berms are acceptable here. There's been talk of silt fence, wood chips,
The
conservation talked of stone.
the Conservation Committee, well, number one, we have to do the silt fence through, for the New Hampshire DES guidelines. They also asked for a mixture of gravel and wood chips within a berm surrounding the snow dump. And that would be on 3 sides, making sure that we don't have runoff down to any lower areas, and one coming up the left-hand side of the property near the tree line to separate from the next door property.
It also should say in here that they need to abide by the setback. This is what, resort commercial?
Yeah.
Is that 30, 20, 20? Is it 20, 20?
20. But we need to check that.
Well, yes, but of course, not having it in here as a condition doesn't make it so they don't have to observe setbacks, right?
No,
I mean-
it's more that they know that they have to.
Okay.
We know they have to, but they may not know they have
Well,
to.
you gotta do it, yeah, I've done it for some.
I don't think anybody should be surprised. Thirty, 20, 20. 30 in the front.
30 in the front?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make a point after reading the minutes from the Conservation Commission, there's 6 members. They reviewed this application
Which one?
and they recommended it to the planning board 6-1. And there's nothing in here about MBTA, a petroleum product that they're concerned of contaminating site. I know that, obviously, you scoop up the snow and you get some contamination, but how much of that is a real concern that we should focus on? Because, a lot of those petroleum products that, they're staying, I think, on the blacktop. I know some is getting scooped up, but we don't know really how much. And before we continue down the road of, the testing and the concern with petroleum products, I'd rather know more about that. How much is actually, should we expect? How much is it a real threat? I find it hard to believe that all 6 members never brought that up, if it's that much of a concern with snow plowing.
Catherine, you were there. You want to address that? Why it may not have been brought up?
Um,
I'm surprised you didn't bring it up.
Yeah, I kept my mouth shut, I didn't want to, it's, but I was surprised at
Brought up
the lack
other things.
of some of the conversation. There was no concern for, Penachuk's well. There was no I was just surprised by it, let's just put it that way. And I left them alone. I'll totally admit I left them alone.
Well, you did bring up that Catherine Dawson stated that the planning board is concerned about runoff and how it could be contained.
Yeah, they asked me specifically.
Contained.
I answered a specific question.
Well,
I guess my problem with putting any more, and it's not because I don't want to protect the environment, and I'm quite frankly not even in favor of any snow dumps anywhere, and I think I made that comment to you. I just, guess I should move to Florida if I don't want to have that happen, but I don't think snow dumps are a good thing. I don't think they're good for the environment, but we have snow. There's no way that we can avoid that, and I think that when we have we have a landscape company who has taken the time and gone to the expense of going to UNH's classes that are held for the green snow, and when we're telling them to completely conform to DES recommendations, which is what our state has set forth in their in 2007 environmental fact sheet for snow disposal guidelines, when we're having them come to us every 2 years to get renewed, that we put them through a lot of different exercises, and they put themselves through it to ensure that they are polluting the environment as little as possible. And I think that Dari brought up a good point, and that's that every commercial facility we have in town has a snow dump. So can we really say there's no commercial snow dump? There's snow dumps all over, and they come from commercial properties, so
That's
That's
different
not a
than
commercial snow dump.
I know what you're
That's
saying, but
disposing of
it's,
snow on your site, like any
exactly,
resident does.
but it's the same contaminants going in, and some of those are very close to protected wetlands, so, you know, I don't know. We're at a standstill now, and I'd like to move on. We can either give some approval with,
Can we clarify number 1 and number 8?
we can clarify number 1 and number 8, and if you want to add soil testing, the details of which we'll determine at a later time, we can do that as well. So number 2.
I have a question on 2. Does everybody know what is the snow disposal guidelines?
I have a copy of it.
I have a
Anybody wants
copy
to
of them
read it?
also, if anybody wants to look at them.
It comes
Maybe
from
there's some.
485 state, it's
Oh.
pretty much,
Yeah.
485
Yeah.
state, let's say, is the mother of it.
You want to read them? Has everybody else read them? I'm familiar with them.
So if they come back for approval in 2 years, what are we looking for that might have happened? And we don't necessarily have to list it here if it's in the minutes. What might we be looking for if they've gone beyond the setbacks,
If
if
they've gone beyond the
too
setbacks,
much
if
erosion has taken place from sudden runoff, if litter is not cleaned up, what, I mean, because this
if
puts,
they haven't kept
if
up their
this is
they
approved,
haven't
this
kept
puts
up
our
their, they
client in the
haven't
dark
kept
as
up their
well.
certification, if they have drivers who aren't certified that they've hired since, you know, that kind of thing. If they put up signage, is their signage still there?
Or
The
snowmobiles.
snowmobile's still going through there, yeah,
So this is only pertaining to the 8 underneath it?
Yeah.
And the guidelines?
yeah.
So we're not gonna be concerned about sudden runoff erosion or,
Well, we can put those as conditions if you want to, but I
I suggest satisfactory site maintenance.
following best management practices.
I like satisfactory site maintenance, but that's still a little vague for even the client. Anything that is left to,
We're gonna
what do
have
I
to-
think is satisfactory site maintenance, and what do you think
I would-
could be different?
Sorry.
I would question whether, the notion that the planning board necessarily owes it to the applicant to have everything defined that might surface over this 2 years. The idea is nobody, who knows what negative outcomes might come. And where this is maybe the first snow dump that's been before the planning board, I'm not sure, or the second, I guess. Whatever. And few enough of them have come forward where saying, okay, we're gonna let you do this, but we wanna look at it again in 2 years, and we don't necessarily know what issues may have emerged then, is okay. I would, urge the board not to feel like, in this case, it has to completely explain that.
I feel like it's we're trying to micromanage.
Well, let me
A
remind you of
landscape
a
company.
site plan we did. It required a sidewalk to be built with no detail.
No time frame.
Right, we left out detail.
That's
This
detail
requirement.
that was beholding someone to something. This is detail that would be that was detail left out that was beholding the applicant to something. This is detail left out that's beholding the planning board to something.
Still detail.
I'm saying don't limit yourselves in your ability to look at this 2 years from now and make a call as to whether it's a good idea or not. By saying we're only gonna look at these things 2 years from now. No, say you're gonna look at the whole thing 2 years from now. Maybe you just don't like their shirts, obviously that's a joke, but who knows what it is that
They have
Mighty
nice
service.
shirts. I've seen their shirts. Man, they got nice shirts.
Well, I was just kidding, let's not get off on
And
that.
then number 8,
No, but again, it goes back to micromanaging I feel in this case, a landscaping company, not the approval for the snow dump, but that's,
are we
again,
gonna
my
leave
opinion.
number 8 open as well? Up to our discretion, whatever those
Yes.
inspections might be.
I thought that was loose for a specific reason.
Yeah, that's good.
Madam Chair. My only concern on this is, and I'm also maybe trying to protect the applicant, is that I do like the idea of a soil test at the beginning. We may never do another soil test there, but at least we can say, this is what it was on November 15th, 2014.
And I think that's a very good idea.
And in 2015, 2016, this is what's in the soil. If it becomes an issue, or it could be in 10 years from now, we can say, oh my goodness, there's, we can open up we can squeeze the oil out of the soil there because there's so much oil, or we can build a car from the brake dust that's in there, or.
We can all be rich because we have oil wells.
Right, and, Silver Lake becomes, Silver Oil Company, and then at least we're protecting everyone involved, and I just think it's a good idea.
I don't have a
Open
problem.
as an option for them, because you're not gonna need just one. I'm suspecting that to get a true reading, you need to use many
But
in
at
the
least,
whole area.
I appreciate your suggestion, and I have made note of it, and I think it's a good idea.
and I don't know what.
And again, as Eric said, to protect the user.
We can come back and say, you polluted this, but you can come back and say, hey, you know what, in 2014, we tested it, and, it was already high. And, we didn't add that much to it, we added 5%, whatever, I don't know what the ratios are.
Or, if nothing else, just to indicate the type of soil that we have.
And you don't have a problem with that at all. And does anybody else want to comment on that?
Well, does that require a soil test in 2 years now?
That's not what we're saying, an initial
Okay, I'm just-
soil test.
Just one
But
soil test.
if something should come up and somebody should say later, this has contaminated our wells and it's, so on and so forth, and and you test again, and all of a sudden we find all kinds of contaminants in it, then we know why it's contaminated. We would not necessarily know why before.
Possibly if it wasn't from a roadway or some other, I don't know. That's,
Well, it's gonna have
Well,
an apron there, and there's gonna be a berm, and there's,
So
I'll probably do 2 or 3 tests on the site.
So you're suggesting that we wait until somebody comes forward with a claim of contamination before we test it again? There wouldn't be like a once-a-year test, or just the one test, is what you're saying?
that's what we're recommending, yes. Any other discussion? Judy, you're being quiet. All right, so let's see how we can, you have anything? Pat? You have anything to say?
Not on this, no.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience, because I'm gonna close it to the public. Dari?
I can mention this later, that I think someone brought up the invasive species issue, and it sounds like at the Conservation Commission, the applicant expressed willingness to address any invasive species issues that emerge, so perhaps we should get that in as a
Condition?
Yeah, so that maybe that it would be worded,
Could we name that invasive?
no, I think it should be all invasive. There's, Phragmite was listed, but I don't see a reason to why,
Japanese knotweed, there's a
Right.
whole bunch of them.
let's.
I think
let's say all
lilac just
invasive.
came out recently.
Oh.
Lilac.
lilac.
The
The
state.
state flower
Yeah.
is an invasive species?
Yeah.
Oh, they're a weed, Catherine, they'll go nuts on you.
Oh,
Mine
yeah.
don't. Say them over.
So it's specific.
But I like
Yeah,
that.
Cynthia's
It's
worse.
worse. burning bush is one of them, and that's,
Okay.
I'm trying to word this. The site shall be open to inspection by the town, an initial inspection and soil test. Can we put that there? And soil test shall be scheduled prior to operation to confirm that all above conditions have been met. How's that?
Just the soil test at the applicant's expense, perhaps.
Okay. And the applicant's expense.
Sorry.
Well, I think you knew that was gonna be in there, right?
Can we put the type of berm that the applicant has indicated he's gonna put down? The state guidelines
Yeah.
only require the silt fence.
Yeah,
Gravel and wood chip berm, is that what you said?
Stone and
okay.
chip.
The installation, number 9, installation of gravel and wood chip on 3 sides.
Yeah.
In the minutes of the conservation, it says it would be made up wood chips or sand and stone.
That was their suggestion.
So if all that
And
mixed
then they
together
said they
would be
prefer
better for
sand and stone.
What is the height of the berm that you're,
2 to 3 feet, possibly 4 feet along the back.
can we put that in there?
It says 3 to 5.
Installation of gravel and wood chip berm on 3 sides to be, how many feet?
We'll go 3 to 5.
3 to 5 feet high. Then abide by all setbacks. Anything else?
Are we putting satisfactory site maintenance in there?
Best management practices followed in maintaining property.
That's
They're
different
well
from,
aware of best management
that's different from what the applicant stated. Because this is talking about erosion control, which isn't discussed in the snow disposal guidelines.
Well, we've got that he's going to conform to snow disposal guidelines, so is that,
No, not for me. It doesn't, the snow disposal guidelines don't talk to maintenance of the site.
And the applicant already said he would do that.
Yeah.
all right, well, how would you like to word this? Maintenance of,
What did I say?
you said satisfactory.
Site maintenance.
Satisfactory site maintenance.
Conform to satisfactory
Satisfactory to who?
site
Planning board.
So what
maintenance.
does that mean now?
If the berm does not provide adequate erosion control from a sudden spring thaw or rain,
Okay,
we can
so-
require
So if a
a
berm is
taller
breached-
berm or a wider berm.
Right, if,
If there's
Right.
a lot of ruts created because of the unstableness of the soils that it's on from the trucks driving in, we can require that to be fixed. If
So just.
my land becomes polluted, you're in big trouble. That is that sort of thing, I think. If there's
We have a
a,
schedule of your bathroom breaks.
if there's a plot of Japanese knotweed suddenly growing on the site,
Well, but
So invasive species can be in that satisfactory site maintenance?
just it's a lot of
That
things.
was a lot.
It's as ambiguous as number 1 and number 8.
Joint,
What was the one?
we opened it up to invasive, all invasive species, and I'm not sure that there isn't any on site,
I was just gonna say, but it takes some good
And
pictures.
I have the newest handbook on what they are, you know. I do, seriously.
There's an awful lot of weeds and stuff on that site.
I know, I drive by it every day. Catherine drives by it every day. Catherine has to look at part of it.
I turn around on them a lot.
All right, let me read the conditions and let's see if we have anything else to add. But first let me ask, is everybody comfortable with satisfactory site maintenance?
I think it's vague.
It's
but-
vague, but it's,
So it's number
It's
one and
okay.
eight.
in the minutes, would you please specify that that includes invasive species, runoff, erosion,
Et cetera.
et cetera? Okay, if you could do that, please.
Yep.
And then it will at least be in the minutes if somebody 100 years from now comes down.
2 years.
All right.
Right,
All right,
it's coming
here,
back.
it's actually 2 years when they come back, exactly. Okay, number one, possible conditions. Number one, approval is good for 2 years. In order to continue operation beyond 2 years, you have to return to this board for renewal. Okay? Be sure to specify to the planning board when you do that. Number two, the snow dump shall conform to New Hampshire DES recommendations as set forth in the 2007 DES Environmental Fact Sheet entitled Snow Disposal Guidelines. 3, Snow Pro certification shall be retained for all operators maintaining properties sending snow to the snow dump.
Chairman, sorry, just before, on number 2, you had added, and chapter 485C.
Yes.
I just went,
Yes.
thank you.
485, RSA 485-C. My sheet disappeared. I had it written there. This has got an error. I think you did this, Dory. Number 4, only snow from properties located in Tilton, maintained exclusively by Belknap Landscape Company, may be brought into the snow dump. Number 5, the property owner must take necessary actions to either divert or discontinue snowmobile traffic through the site. 6, sufficient signage must be posted clearly indicating in language that can be understood by children that trespass is prohibited. Number 7, necessary driveway permission must be obtained from New Hampshire DOT prior to operations. And what those are spelled out in that letter that that you got a copy of. Number 8, the site shall be open to inspection by the town, and an initial inspection and soil test at the expense of the applicant shall be scheduled prior to operation to confirm that all above conditions have been met. Number 9, the installation of gravel and wood chip berm on 3 sides to be 3 to 5 feet high. Number 10, abide by all setbacks. Number 11, conform to satisfactory site maintenance. And I have to, is that, all right, anything else? Otherwise, I'm going to entertain a motion to accept these conditions. Approval with the
I make a
exception of,
motion to accept.
do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye. May you make sure the record shows that I specifically opposed the snow dump?
Yeah, I'll, sure, yep, 5, that's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4 in favor, 2 opposed, and Dawson requests, yep, got it.
Okay,
Too close.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you. And Dory and I thought this would take 10 minutes.
Hour.
Yeah.
Close.
All right. The next is preliminary site plan, and I don't know where our, no one showed up, and did you hear from him?
No. Interesting.
Yeah, well, we do have, that's fine, because we do have someone who would like to give a conceptual of a
Sorry, Chairman Owen, you just, for the, I don't know if it's necessary or not, you just want to indicate that case 1416 has been
Yeah.
withdrawn, I'm not sure if it's necessary.
we don't know that, they're not in attendance. How's that?
Well, that's 1417, 1416
okay.
has been withdrawn.
Oh, okay, yes, 1416 has been withdrawn,
Okay.
and 1417 is
Yeah.
not present,
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
all right? Excuse me,
Madam Chair, what happens when they're not present? I mean, I came specifically for that case that you're speaking about right now. I'm concerned because there's work being done on that property as we speak, right now.
there's a water line being put in right now.
No, there is a brand-new road, loaders and a brand-new road. I was just there, not even, 20 minutes before I entered into here. There's a brand-new road connecting a storage building to Awakening Chiropractic's extension parking lot.
Well,
And it goes to Grange Road, brand new gravel, everything.
number one, the person who is bringing this conceptual is not here, so we can't make assumptions about that. What we can do is, and please talk with the code enforcement officer tomorrow and have that stopped.
I would like it on record that I brought it to your attention. Thank you.
But,
When I was there today, they were laying the water line,
but,
and that was all they were doing, so that's why. But,
currently the applicant, the property owner has built a storage building for his own use. It is, it is not commercial, there's been no site plan. If he wants to build pathways or roads on his property, how can we prevent him? If it's for his own use.
I think if you looked at the may I speak?
yes, you may, but let me just say one thing.
I think there's a prior agreement in place with that piece of property.
Dari is going to check that out tomorrow. Is that not, can I ask you to check that out?
That's correct.
Okay, and
Yeah.
Dari will check that part out tomorrow. However, we don't know his reason for doing it, and we cannot make assumptions about his reason for doing it. Maybe he's going to use that road to take things to be stored in that building, and that's fine. There's nothing we can do to stop that, okay? Anybody want to add, is that a satisfactory answer? Well, we can't. Nothing we can do about it.
I want to have, at the end of the meeting, a little more discussion on this property, because I have a question while we're all here. That in lieu of the other person who's here to speak
Holding
to
up the
us.
person that showed up.
It could
Yeah.
be after.
And he was told it would only be about a few minutes, so. Pat, thank you for your patience, but thank us for letting you come tonight since you weren't scheduled. So now that we've thanked each other, Pat is here to give a conceptual of a lot line adjustment on his own property between two lots, both of which he owns. So Pat, I will turn it over to you.
And my wife and I want to build a shed on our property to house some woods vehicles, farm vehicles, and mainly my wife's toys. But, and this is our entire property. It's about 24 acres. And we had it subdivided back in 2007.
Is it on?
No, sorry, I just picked this up and I hit the red button by accident to just put it in there. What do I hit?
Did you start the recording again?
No, what do I hit on?
I don't know, I have to look at it.
It just says pause. Just because I grabbed the button by accident.
Don't let Kevin touch it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I try not to touch
He'll
anything.
say but.
Very familiar with this kind of thing.
Okay, it's recording again now.
All right, my wife and I wanted to build a shed on this piece of property here, in this location right here. And it's gonna require, for us to fit it in, to have a lot line adjustment back 20 feet from here, just down to here. This pretty much shows you what that would look like. All right, moving that line from here back to here is, I don't know, it's about, I don't know how many square feet that would be, but it's not a great deal. But we need that in order to be able to get out, you know, onto the road from here. And that's gonna require moving the driveway down to make that happen. But, so all I'm in here to do mainly is the lot line adjustment. You need to look at that again, Kathy.
This one.
And I've been told, I met with Dari this morning. This lot line adjustment only came up over the weekend when my wife and I put stakes out here to see where it actually would. It looked neat on paper, but when you put stakes out there, you realize how confining the situation is. And then we had our surveyor come over tonight and took a look at it, and this is what he's recommending. So that's what we'd like to do. Now, it's also going to require us to be before the ZBA, and I've been told that there are two applications, if you will, one for getting lot line adjustment done, and the other one to get a variance done through the ZBA. And both of those require notification of abutters. I think we have somewhere between 7 and 8 abutters. And Dari had suggested that we do them together. He said he's done that before, where we could send out letters to all the abutters at one time for both the planning board and for the ZBA. It would save us a great deal of expense to do that. And it would really let them know what the whole picture is on one fell swoop. So that's it in a nutshell. I just wanted, I know I got a schedule of when you need to submit and so forth. Just last week, Suki picked it up.
Dari and I went out there today and looked at the property, and you can't really see on a flat piece of paper the situation, but there's going to have to be variance, I believe, or setbacks. There's steep slopes involved that I think you're going to have to, aren't you going to fill?
No, it's actually by doing the setbacks, we're going to have to fill down here a little bit down here.
That's what I just said.
But most of this is going to be on the flat. If we had to move it down, it would be very difficult. I don't know if we even do it.
You said you were going to move it down according to where you had those stakes.
We're going to move it back. That's why the lot line adjustment. We're moving it back.
What does that do to the lot next door? Does it make it?
That's our lot as well.
Yeah, but do you still have enough?
That's our lot as well. And the reason why we had it set up the way we've got it now is that eventually what we want to do is put a road, whether we live down there or somebody else lives down there, we want to put a road sloping in that direction. And I had the surveyor come over tonight and calculate it. By doing that 20-foot setback, we lose about 25 feet on the slope. It makes it a lot steeper, a little bit steeper. And instead of a 11-degree grade here, it would make it a 13-degree grade. That's right. It's a very difficult, steep grade.
What's our maximum? What's our maximum grade?
It's in the steep slopes, and
I see you have an established 75-foot protected well radius, even though your house is in.
Well, that's for septic systems. All right, so that's the requirement for septic systems to be outside of that.
Somewhere I have that from another. That's in subdivision, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't think we need to concern ourselves with that, because that's only if you develop the lot next door, right?
It's only
That
if
you're
the
gonna-
road goes
if the
in.
road
What,
goes
going,
in.
having the road go down, yeah,
That's
Well, if
only-
he's gonna put a 20-foot setback, which is gonna make the driveway access to build on this buildable lot, a steeper grade, that's, I don't know what our steep slope grade is,
Okay, look.
except for that, you know what I mean? He should
Yeah.
know before, God, I haven't looked at subdivision for a while.
We need to get a driveway permit too for the-
Each one. He just wanted to come in tonight to give us an idea, not to get into.
I basically wanted to find out if we could do the notices to the abutters all at one fell swoop. That's the only thing I haven't covered
I
tonight.
The thing I mentioned on that is that, you know, there are notice requirements
I don't know where it is.
for both ZBA and planning board meetings, so that, and we've done that, we did the same with Tilton School recently,
Right.
where there was a ZBA hearing and a planning board hearing, and we simply put the notices in the same envelope and saved some money for the applicant.
That's reasonable.
And we can do that same thing. The only negative to the applicant is that sometimes, rather than going to this meeting and this meeting, they instead have to drop down to this meeting and this
Yeah.
meeting to meet all the notice requirements, and he said that was fine.
And Pat
Yeah.
travels a lot, so
With that?
you travel a lot,
Right,
so.
right. Yeah, I'm gonna be out of town for your meeting on the, well, I can't even get in on your meeting on the 25th because I haven't submitted
Yeah.
in a timely fashion. So, we would be looking no earlier than,
You could be at the
December 9th.
25th meeting.
pardon?
You could be, it was the November 11th meeting that we identified.
He's gonna be out of town, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna be out of town for that,
For
for
the-
the November 25th
Oh, okay.
meeting. I'll be
Alright.
out of town.
Yeah, yeah, all right, I see what you're saying.
So you can get all that paperwork in and get the driveway. You were gonna bring us a copy of the driveway. You had something from DOT, you said.
Yeah, I got an email from DOT. I met with them last week. We do have permission to have 3 driveways, 2 right here and 1 on this one because this is a pre-existing lot. And so that's not a problem. They've already okayed that. I've got an email that indicates that.
You said you'd give us a copy tonight.
If you wanted, I could. I'd rather bring it in,
All right, well,
but, you know, I'd rather bring it in
Yeah,
one
we
fell
don't need it
swoop
tonight.
because,
that's fine.
what I was gonna do is find out exactly if we were gonna be able to get it, and then I could give him the go-ahead too,
Yeah,
to do
all right.
the permit, you know, measuring and so forth.
Okay.
And I wanted to get a kind of a general feeling for how the planning board felt about that. I guess a lot line adjustment is not a difficult thing, especially since I own both lots, but, and I don't know if any neighbor's gonna show up. When we did the subdivision, only one neighbor showed up, and they no longer, they don't live in the neighborhood anymore, they're gone. So, basically what I'm asking is to find out if we could send out the notice to abutters along with the ZBA, if you're comfortable with that, and I can bring that into the ZBA meeting.
Actually, that's
Meet with
better
them.
Do
for
we have
us.
to vote on that?
Driveways of up to 199 feet shall not be designed with a grade of not more than 8%.
That's for him to deal with at another, I mean, sorry, if I may. I think, it's, you know, we certainly can help him as much as we want, but I think, for the purposes, how do I wanna say this? I guess, there are a lot of pieces to this project, and there are some
Right.
really simple pieces. And I
Right.
think one of them, in my mind, is the lot line adjustment. And the variance is maybe not a slam dunk in terms of whether it'll go through or not, but it's a simple request.
Right.
I think, you know, a lot of the complications in your overall project are not gonna be looked at by the planning board at
I was
this
gonna
point.
say they're not a planning board issue.
Yeah,
It would be irresponsible of us for him to say, oh yeah, we're gonna approve this, knowing that he's going to create a condition where a driveway is gonna be
Costly.
a grade that's not allowable.
Well, I
I
will
don't know if
point
that's
out,
I think it, you know,
Yes, it is.
I don't
That's
see
what
that as
he's here
irresponsible
for.
because
The
He's,
maximum allowable grade of any roadway improvements will
well,
not
we
exceed
don't,
8%.
at this point, I don't think, I
10%?
don't think he absolutely knows 11%, and I think when he gets further into the project, sure, he'll probably have questions like that. and
If,
provide
if,
those
if it is 8%, right now, the existing way it's laid out right now is 11%. If we do the setback, it's 13%. So either one of those don't meet what you've discovered. And that is something to get into on another day, I think. I'm
But
just
isn't
looking
that
for
the
lot
other
line
lot?
adjustment issues right
Yeah, a
now.
lot.
That's
Well,
the other
before
lot.
the applicant spends a lot of money on anything, he needs to know these things in place.
Yeah, it
So
is
if you
nice to
look at
know.
the subdivision,
Yeah,
you'll find that description of roadway design standards, and it'll talk to you about all of that.
Yeah,
So before
and-
you spend any money to move
Right.
that line, make sure that your driveway's gonna
Yeah.
comply with that.
all right.
Otherwise, you'll have wasted the money.
Yeah, but the driveway you're moving is moving the other way.
He said that if you move that line 20 feet,
That's a driveway.
the driveway on
into
the other property would increase to a slope that's not permitted in our subdivision regulations.
And that
It'd
may
be
be a monetary
irresponsible for us
decision
to
for him
to say, go
okay,
forward.
I'm not going to.
And make it non-compliant and unbuildable. So, read those subdivision regulations.
All right, that's it.
Thank
See
you,
ya.
Matt.
Thank you.
Bye.
That was quick.
That was quick.
You can draw it out another half hour if you so
Right.
desire, but.
Want me to?
I was gonna say, we got Miss Butt, Miss Butt with us. But, all right, next order of business to review the October 14th, 2014 minutes. Yeah, I did, but I've forgotten now, it's been, I even did it before the meeting. Everybody got a copy? Everybody read them? Anybody wanna make a motion, accept, reject them, or correct them?
No, I'm abstaining because I wasn't here last time.
I make a motion to accept the
Sorry.
minutes of the, which one is that?
August 12th,
August 12th meeting.
October 14th.
I mean, October,
October 14th, 2014 planning board
Yeah.
minutes
Yeah.
as written.
as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstaining.
I'm staying for part of it, I guess. I don't know.
Karsh looks,
Yeah.
you're an ep.
Sorry, what was the
One,
vote?
one abstention.
Okay, well, all others in favor?
Yeah, Eric didn't know what he should do because he was recused.
But you
from
were
part of
here
it.
for the,
Yeah, the other half
every
of it.
part of the rest of it.
Who abstained?
Okay,
Chris.
Chris. No correspondence, believe it or not, except that one letter that I read
Wow.
from DOT. And other business, you wanna talk
I have,
about the,
I have a concern, I've done some research, and I just wanted to bring it up to the
Yeah.
planning board to see if, how anyone else felt.
is this on
This is on,
the person who didn't show
this would
up?
be case number PB 12-07, which was previously approved by conditions, which is the parking lot
Yeah.
on map R9, lot 53.
Yeah.
570 Laconia Road LLC, does everybody know where I am?
Mhm. This
Beside-
is the person
this
who
is-
did not show up
This is
tonight.
beside the
Yeah.
senior center in Tilton on Grange Road.
Would you, what's the date of those, of that, so that they can look up
The date of the approval
Yeah, so they can look up the minutes.
is September 11th, 2012. So this is the planning board at its meeting of September 11th, 2012, after due public hearing completed its consideration of your application for site plan review of 570 Laconia Road LLC, Tilton, New Hampshire, in the mixed-use district.
And I would suggest you read the minutes of, before that
And there's lots of
too.
them.
And there are a lot. I mean, I don't usually keep a file on individual cases, a file that's big on it, so.
So there was, one of the conditions was this, number 5, installation of a pedestrian pathway along Grange Road satisfactory to the Department of Transportation and with appropriate waiver of liability of the town of Tilton. So that was never built. And there's a letter of condition from DOT on what that sidewalk should be, height, and it should be a raised sidewalk, et cetera, et cetera. the town of Tilton entered into agreement with the property owner, giving him a right-of-way across the town's property, a small section of it, so that the sidewalk could be built on mainly the property owner's property and a little bit of Tilton. So we wouldn't have to deal with DOT's conditions for a sidewalk along Grange Road, which is
Those are walk-
raised
Yeah.
sidewalk consisting of a granite curb and a 6-inch high reveal above the existing pavement and a 5-foot wide paved sidewalk. Because if you did that, essentially, we wouldn't have any parking, because we park along Grange Road. So my question is, if we made a condition that a sidewalk needs to be built, and the sidewalk has not been built, should we not inform this person that the condition was not met? Therefore, his parking lot is closed until it is? He was approved with these conditions. One of them has not been met, so where do we go?
Exactly.
Is there a time frame that
There was no
conditions need to be
time,
met?
there was no time frame. That's where we screwed up. We did not put a time frame.
But he
Yeah.
wasn't supposed to use that parking lot until he had the
That's right.
safety.
This was a condition.
Correct.
And this condition was made 2 years ago plus a couple months, and has not yet been met. So what do we do?
It's a typical procedure, if somebody doesn't do that.
If somebody does not meet their conditions.
Conditions, then they get,
The approval essentially could be rescinded. The difficulty, I think, that everyone's acknowledging here is that no clear time frame was set. So potentially, I guess there's a few ways, maybe it falls to what just reasonability. What's a reasonable time frame? Is it in 2 years?
it's in
is
less than 2
probably-
years.
Yeah, I mean, 2 years, I think that, this, sorry, get a little off track. One of the recommendations that I'd like to propose for an amendment to some of the regulations is setting these timeframes, so that approval without any sort of time frame automatically, the conditions have to be met within 2 years. Anyway, that'll be upcoming in a future meeting, a discussion for a future meeting. Anyway, so Catherine, am I right that there's no timeline on that? But
There
somebody
isn't a timeline on any of these.
and is there anything that said, Judy kind of touched on maybe the possibility that he's not allowed to start using the parking lot until those are all met, or is that not?
Because his
The
people are
board
not
voted to
supposed to be traversing.
voted to preliminary.
Preliminarily?
Preliminary, no, it says preliminary.
Well,
So anyway, approved with the following conditions, and then it lists them, and none of these have a time frame. None of them. Mr. Bernard to arrange the installation of the connection to the Tilton Senior Center to the Lockmere Village Water, subject to the approval of the Board of Selectmen. So there was no time frame except for that, but that was done. To relocate the parking space nearest to Route 3 to the northwest corner of the site. To secure an engineering report addressing the removing stump, that was done, but there was no time frame. So I mean, all of these things essentially, he might not have had to do because there's no time frame set.
But he was not supposed to use that parking lot till he had a walkway, because that was the safety issue for for the chiropractic employees.
Right, but again,
Is that under an understanding, or is that something that's in
That was,
writing?
that was
DOT
an
said
understanding, and that's why DOT said that, we didn't.
DOT said there had to
said
be
it.
a sidewalk.
So he's right now maybe that's a strong word, but in violation of something that DOT said had to
Yes.
happen
Yes.
in order for him to be able to use
Correct.
that parking lot.
here's the DOT letter dated November 2nd, 2012, writing to come on under condition number 5 to the above referenced application. Condition number 5 requires the applicant to construct a pedestrian pathway along Grange Road to the satisfaction of the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. The pedestrian way will provide employee access from a small parking lot that will be constructed on lot R9-53 to the existing building on lot R9-55 that houses a chiropractor's office and several other businesses. rather than reading the whole thing, the next paragraph simply describes the design of the sidewalk. And then if you have any questions. So there's no time frame in this as well. But again,
But their approval of using the chiropractic office was contingent upon them having the additional parking. If they haven't made the additional parking conform to what DOT said with the walkway, then they're out of compliance.
well, DOT really only commented because the Tilton Planning Board was requiring them to build a sidewalk along their road. So this letter really is only to say, what kind of sidewalk will you build along the road? Our
No, I don't
conditions-
think that's, no,
Sure it is.
I won't be, I don't know this for sure, but I don't think it had anything to do with the planning board and their requirements. So I don't understand.
One of the requirements and why it came up with DOT was the safety factor in the employees walking a state road. They did not want to be liable for them having to walk from the parking lot over Grange Road and then into the other parking lot, which was Awakening Chiropractic. They said it was a safety hazard and that therefore they wanted a walkway. We couldn't grant them the walkway because it would have taken away our entire parking. So that's why we tried to get a resolve and allow him a tiny easement to build the pathway in the back. And with DOT present, with the selectmen present, we all agreed that that would be the best alternative, and that's what happened. It was for the safety of the employees not going out in the street having to walk at nighttime in early morning in ice and snow on a state road.
But that isn't in writing anywhere.
I spoke,
What is in writing is he had to have that parking lot.
Right. One of our conditions is he had to have a safe way to convey those pedestrians from that
Right.
parking lot
And that is in writing.
to that business. That
Since he
is
has
in
not
writing.
provided them a hovercraft, he needs to provide them a safe path. Sure, Eric.
I just pulled up the minutes of that, September 11th, that's from the 2012 meeting. I think condition number 7 is once all conditions have been met, a compliance hearing will be scheduled to review conditions for approval.
So there was never a final approval done, it was only the preliminary approval. So we can pull them in for a compliance hearing and
So there wasn't another hearing?
What do you think, old Grand Poobah's wisdom?
Oh, yeah. Where, who, what, where?
And there was also supposed to be a waiver of liability established with the town regarding a pedestrian pathway along Grange Road because it was crossing town property, so there was also supposed to be an appropriate waiver of liability to the town of Tilton.
We forget
We
that.
didn't get that.
Okay, so that's
we need to
Good
schedule a
information.
compliance hearing.
Yeah.
And I think what happened, I was chair in 2012, in November of 2012. Then Eric was chair, so once everything got completed, it kind of just,
Yep.
so where do we go from here?
Yeah,
Because winter is coming,
Hearing.
and you're gonna
Yeah.
have pedestrians walking in the middle of the road.
yeah, I mean, I think we can feel very good about, not wasting any time with this, given that there's a safety issue at hand. And really, in my mind, when safety's an issue, time frames and stuff go out the window. It's gotta be done right away, as soon as possible. And thank you, Eric, for reading that. I think we should take what Eric just read, contact property owner, perhaps contact DOT, and get their sense as to whether they'd like to offer some encouragement to get this done quickly as well. And I guess we'll have to see where those conversations lead, because if there's willingness on the part of the property owner to get this going, I think we simply stop there and be supportive in his effort to wrap it up. If not, then I think potentially we say you don't have an site plan approval, or site plan approval?
He does not.
Yeah.
He's only got a preliminary, so he has to come in regardless for,
I mean, yes, you're right. That's almost another issue of, yeah, we gotta get him back to the planning board for
Right,
the
for the
compliance
compliance.
hearing, but I think, the urgency is, if he's moving forward, then we just work it into the schedule. If he's not, then, we need to make that the focus of our efforts.
Now here's the rest of the story. As per these documents, the planning board expects him to build a sidewalk along Grange Road. Was there any notification to the planning board that the selectmen entered into an agreement with him to have that that would allow him to build a sidewalk
look at the
along his
minutes
property
at the
in
next
up Grange
meeting.
Road?
because
Boy.
I believe we had
So
that sketched out.
essentially you're saying he's got different sets of direction from two boards, is that?
He came to the selectmen, he approached us, right? Looking for an easement so he could put the sidewalk on his property and not along Grange Road, because the Board of Selectmen said, no, you're not gonna put a sidewalk along our property, because he would then be out of the state right of way and onto our property in order to build the sidewalk that the state described, and it would eliminate our parking
He
in the
was,
front of that building.
he was initially brought in for compliance because the building was being used for something other than what he was intended to do. And in that discussion with the planning board, he did not have ample parking to suffice. And that led him to the selectmen and DOT, and thus he was working with three entities. So I think that the planning board was aware, although the Board of Selectmen didn't give them an official letter. Catherine, I think you're right, we didn't give them an official letter saying that we agreed with this easement and back and this is how it's gonna go, to notify the planning board of that, of such, other than talking with the planning board members and saying it's in the minutes of the meeting.
Judy and I know Judy and I were there when it came up, because we were actually
site
at the
visit.
site.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
If the planning board, who is the ruling body over the site plan, if the last meeting he had with the planning board was that September 11th meeting, where he got those preliminary conditions, would that not
November
stand,
2nd.
September 11th, would that not stand before the selectmen's agreement? Would he still not be required to meet those conditions set by the planning board that states, you will put a sidewalk along Grange Road?
Good.
Until he comes back in and says, look, I have an agreement with the selectmen that would allow me to put a sidewalk here. Would you consider removing condition number 5 and allow me to put it here?
I agree that those steps need to be taken unless he wants to take it out of the hands of the municipality and turn it into a legal thing where it's, these guys said this and these guys said that, which is in no one's interest. I think you're right, if we want to keep
The
it.
planning board would have standing here,
Right,
would they
yeah.
not?
Yeah,
He would have to come back and say, hey, I got a different plan. What do you
right,
think?
and we came up with another solution,
And I
I'd
don't
like to
believe
present
that was
this,
done.
yeah, right.
Look up the November 2nd minute.
November 20th.
Yeah, please.
Can permission to speak freely. On the planning board minutes of November 27th, there's a reference, and I'm just scrolling through there to, in the, I don't even call it agenda, it's review 570 Laconia Road LLC easement for walkway. And then it says review and comment on Best Pocket Park, and then underneath that says walkway easement for Mr. Bernard. So, it goes, let's see. It says Chairman Alden asked Ms. Plesser to review the walkway easement, at Best Park, okay. So, Ms. Plesser began by explaining the walkway easement between 570 Laconia Road LLC and the town of Tilton was approved by the Board of Selectmen on November 1st, 2012. Ms. Plesser read from the minutes the Board of Selectmen minutes of November 1st, 2012 to verify what she had said. This pleasure continued by stating the town had their attorney review the easement and the added changes the planning board received for review.
So they did receive them?
I can pull up the November 1st Selectmen's meeting.
How do folks feel about bringing the property owner in for a discussion?
Would it be proper to say, in preparing for your conceptual, we discovered that?
I don't think they're related in my mind. I mean, well, okay, so, that's what brought it to our attention, yeah, right.
You know, I mean, we would,
Sure.
I would,
Yeah, that makes
I
a
don't
lot of
think
sense.
anyone that
No,
was
I
on the
agree.
board at the time would
Sorry,
be able to say, oh, we didn't, right, you know.
Do you have the final approved map? Because I thought he came in with it sketched out on the
I
map.
thought he did too, but
I
Where
haven't
it was-
seen
Point
it.
my
we had the-
memory, that's
Well, we
not-
had the whole conversation
Yeah.
of, wait a minute, if you're gonna put a retaining wall here, what are you gonna do here? You're gonna have steps in the
Yeah.
winter. We had a whole conversation.
Yeah. I mean, it almost seemed, especially, for me especially, since I wasn't here during all this, I get the sense that maybe it's just time for everyone to get back together and agree on what is agreed on, and just sort of identify what everyone agrees on, identify whatever, if anyone disagrees on anything, and and sort of use that as the starting point. Or is that, again, since I don't know the situation, or is that not a good idea? Is that going to lead to more
Well,
trouble?
we've got an entirely different board now, an entirely different board. There are what, 3 of us that were on it at the time? Eric, Judy, and me, and that's it. They weren't here at the time. Elaine, was Elaine here at the time?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, I can tell you in a second.
Okay.
These minutes of November 13th, what he was asking the planning board to do, he said that he had met, he'd been working on these, has been worked on, that he said Mr. Bernard asked if it would be possible if they were allowed to get started before winter comes. He would like to have the board make a motion. Now what's interesting here is I stated that the Conservation Commission will be reviewing the easement on November 19th. This meeting was November 13th. So the easement had not been signed with the selectmen, but it goes on to say Ms. Plesner made a motion stating Mr. Bernard has, for the most part, met his conditions of approval. At such time, the easement has gone through the process of 2 public hearings, a 7-day waiting period, and the Board of Selectmen have signed the easement. Then Mr. Bernard will have met all the conditions of approval and would not need to come back before the planning board. Except he only had preliminary approval, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
But the sidewalk, in fact, he was ordered to build the sidewalk. He has not built the sidewalk.
And he was ordered by DOT.
And I think that is the crux of this.
Yeah. I still wonder if the right approach is to just simply call them and say, hey, we're finding, these are the things we're discovering.
And the safety issue, I think you're
Yeah.
right.
Okay, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. What happens if you make said phone call? He goes, okay, I'll fulfill that, build a sidewalk across the entrance to,
He cannot.
He cannot, it's our
Can't do it.
property.
No, you can't do
there's
that.
no, I don't, I'm just saying, I'm,
And if you
That's
look
the
at the
thing,
pro-
is he can't
He would
do
either
it.
have to build it in Grange Road
yeah.
or on Town of Tilton property, and Town of Tilton will not give him an easement or right-of-way to build on our property.
And if you look at the right-of-way that the town of Tilton has given him, and the pathway that was proposed, and then look at what changes he's made to the property since that was issued, I'm not sure that that could happen.
So what do you suggest we do?
I think,
Now, what about,
I think he has to fulfill the conditions of.
He's in non-compliance.
No.
period.
Even that November meeting indicates that he has not yet built the sidewalk, because the easement wasn't even signed with the selectmen. So technically, on that November 11th, he was still required to build a sidewalk on Grange Road, I think. There would have had to have been a following meeting after the November meeting to say, okay, the easement's been signed, you do have an alternative. Because the Board of Selectmen could have decided not to sign that easement.
Well, I think before we make any real decisions tonight, we all need to go and look at the selectmen's meetings around that time frame and the planning board minutes around that time frame. Unless we want to be here and do all that now with Eric's computer. I think we need to see, because there was meeting after meeting after meeting, and I think there were discussions with the selectmen, were there not?
But I don't
On
think the
several
selectmen's
occasions.
discussions pertain to what the planning board's decision was. The fact is,
But it pertained to
in
the sidewalk.
November, at the November planning board meeting, when it was decided he had met most of the conditions, he was still under the direction to build a sidewalk on Grange Road, because that easement did not exist. It had not been signed, and it's acknowledged in that November planning board meeting. So I think the most important thing is read the planning board minutes, because this is the ruling body of site plans, not the selectmen. Whatever agreement we entered into only gave the planning board another alternative to look at. And I think the fact remains, the planning board's last decision was build a sidewalk on Grange Road. They couldn't have made any other decision because the easement didn't exist. That's my
so-
opinion.
Assuming that's
I
a
told you
fact,
that.
what do we do at that point?
I don't know, Graham Cooper, what do we do? Call them up and just say, hey,
I mean, that's, I think the question is still, should I, or, you know, somebody get in contact with him between now and the next planning board meeting? Or do we feel like, you know, there's some, this is the current planning board, there's some uncertainty as to what, this is the Tilton Planning Board, there's some uncertainty as to what the Tilton Planning Board, how the Tilton Planning Board left this. The Tilton Planning Board isn't done with this, there's not a final site plan approval going forward, and so and then in that case, maybe say, I don't do anything for the next 2 weeks, and we make our decision 2 weeks from now, how you want to have me, or how we want to proceed, I guess is the question.
I think we call them up and say, you've never gotten final approval.
Yeah.
You, at the last meeting, it was understood that you had not built the sidewalk.
Okay.
The easement wasn't signed, and that's left unfinished.
Okay.
What do you plan on doing? When do you plan on building the sidewalk?
Yeah.
And then gather that information, and then, in the meantime, the planning board can study the minutes, study the facts, see what your conclusions are, and we'll come back together and figure out what we want to do then. I mean, we spent 2 years, what's another month, a couple of weeks.
We wouldn't know about unless this, we wouldn't even have thought of it until this came on the
I
agenda.
wouldn't say that.
No, because we had talked, we talked about it.
It's been
We talked
discussed.
about pursuing it with the state since it was the state's ruling, and we just haven't done it. And I think we even talked to you about calling it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, yeah, I've tried a few times to understand exactly this issue, and Pat's tried to explain it to me before, but each time I hear about it, I guess it
And it's tough
hammers
if
through
you
my
weren't
thick head a
physically on
little
the
further.
property to figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like I'm starting to get it now.
And
It's
Judy and I were
complicated.
there with the state when the state was
It
there.
was Bill Rollins.
Bill Rollins,
It
yeah.
was Bill Rollins that I brought over there and said, hey,
Because we talked about him moving the line, remember, and taking out the stake and the stone wall that he wasn't supposed to touch. And
I talked to him when we, how long ago was that up on Caleb Hill? I
Bill?
talked,
that's a couple months ago.
a couple months ago, I talked to him about Laconia Road.
and what did he say?
He said that he would look it over and have to send a letter of non-compliance. I haven't heard a word from him since. That was Bill Rollins.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate again.
It's okay, that's helpful.
What if, whatever happens, because I remember back when this happened, it was fairly contentious between the property owner and the town. What if there's definitely an issue of lack of parking in that area? What's the difference of, people parking on the side of the road? Because apparently, for the town's property up there, people park on the side of the road, and they cross the road to access the senior center, the town's property. So if he can't put his sidewalk in, or can't put his walkway in, or hasn't put his walkway in, if they just park on that, what seems to be an accepted area for parking, they're just parking there and walking across the road.
They can't block the road. In the wintertime, there's no room to park on the road. That's the biggest issue.
But
And the senior center has made arrangements with the veterinarian office next door to park in that parking lot when they're closed and whatnot.
just play devil's advocate, seeing.
But it still doesn't negate the fact that the last planning board's conditions were build a sidewalk.
No, and, but I'm just saying, I just remember back then. It was
Parking on the road would be another issue. They probably get towed in the winter.
They're subject to ticketing all year round, can't park in them. It seems-
Right now, they actually park in the senior parking lot for overflow. And on Wednesday nights, we park over there, so,
And we're agreeable to that.
And that we're
they
very-
are too.
yeah, it's not you have to remember that the planning board had him come in for non-compliance because it was an eBay building and to sell boats. And it went from that to a very large, high-capacity chiropractic office.
Overnight.
And almost overnight, and massage therapy and nutritionists and everything in there. And the volume of people in vehicles was not spelled out in the business.
Inadequate parking was a piece of shit.
Very inadequate parking, it was a huge issue.
Sorry I added to your workload,
No,
but it's interesting.
yeah, it'd be good to get this one out of the way. Hopefully one of these days.
So, all right,
Not in my lifetime.
all right, let's summarize so we can get out of here before midnight to see the Bruins game.
Yeah, I know that's where I'll be.
Dari, Dari's going to call Mr. Bernard
Yeah.
and explain the situation to him. In the meantime, we're gonna go back and read the notes. I would suggest reading probably September through December.
I'd go back
I'll go back to
to the
Yeah.
beginning.
Before September?
Yeah, I think there was what, August, September, November, and I think
Yeah.
there was a meeting before August.
Yes.
I said there was before that.
It was
I think
But when if you go back to start in September and see where it is at that point, and then go back from there as opposed to, starting
We
in
were
June
on
and
site
going
in
forward.
August.
Yeah.
The site visit
Need
was
a
August.
vacation to read.
All right. Is everybody satisfied with that?
Yes.
Then I'll entertain a motion to say goodnight.
Good night.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Becky, I'll be sleeping. I almost forgot you was here.
Where is it?
Just
There
leave.
it is.
Would you like to go home? Hello? Do you want to go home?
Want to hear about him anymore.
Why don't
Okay,
right about
thanks for
now?
everything, shut up.
What's that?
Wait, is it right about now?
Oh, yeah.
Now it's
Sounds
still
like
outside.
shit.
Little abused animal.
This year?
I didn't know. Get out of there. I just saw my little dog. Jeez.
All right, guys, good night. Thank God.
Good night, everyone.
Looks like it's still recording.
It does, where's the?
Sorry.